I knew it was coming, you knew it was coming, we all knew it was coming, didn't we? But here it is, the brand new 911 GT3 RS. And it's not messing about, is it? In fact, I'm slightly worried it's gonna headbutt me in a minute. Now, if you thought that car over there, the GT3, was extreme, this is the car that makes it look like a bit of a wuss. So here's everything you need to know about the new 992 generation 911 GT3 RS. Let's get the pub ammo out the way first, shall we? Power comes from a naturally aspirated 4-litre flat 6 producing 518 brake horsepower. Porsche says it'll hit 184 miles an hour flat out, with 0 to 62 taking just 3.2 seconds. For comparison, that's only a 15 horsepower bump over the GT3, mainly thanks to new hotter camshaft, 0.2 seconds quicker from 0 to 62 than the GT3, and 14 miles an hour less at the top end because of extra drag from the wing and the extra width, and a shorter overall gear ratio for the PDK gearbox. So yes, this has some of the most senior stats of any 911 to date, but the GT3 RS has always been about more than just the numbers. Note how it hasn't gone power crazy. It's only got, I say only, just over 500 horsepower because that is the perfect amount of power for this particular application. In fact, let's find out how we got here, shall we? The RS lineage goes all the way back to the 1972 2.7 RS, a total honey to drive and knocking on the door of £1 million now for the very best examples. But the first GT3 RS was the 2003 996. Originally intended as a homologation special, they eventually built 680 with fewer than 120 of those coming to the UK. Next up was the 2006 997.1 GT3 RS, and it was a revelation. Wider, over 400 horsepower from its 3.6 litre engine, it was raw and mechanical and brilliant to drive. Except the 997.2 that arrived in 2009 was better. The engine grew to 3.8 litres and so did the Legend. For many, this is considered peak GT3 RS, from the quality of the damping to its eagerness to attack any road or track. Then the legendary 4-litre version with 493 horsepower miraculously improved on perfection. In 2015, the 991.1 GT3 RS was the point where Porsche got serious about aerodynamics. It was also the point it introduced the PDK gearbox into the formula. It was less raw, more polished, but still magnificent. The 991.2 car brought new suspension for a more precise front end. By this point, there are no quirks that you have to drive around, just a hardcore focus on speed. Which brings us to the next chapter. And we start at the front with the radiators. Hear me out, it's more exciting than it sounds because you see every road-going 911, like the GT3 over there, has 3 radiators in the front, whereas this just has one much larger angled radiator under there. It's the same solution that you get in the 911 RSR and the GT3 R race cars, and there are pros and cons to this. On the downside, you lose your frunk. You don't get any storage under there, so anything you bring along for the ride is going to have to be wedged into the roll cage behind you. But the positives are it frees up space either side, so you can have active aero elements in the front splitter. Now those are constantly working with the active rear wing to create 70% downforce at the rear and 30% downforce at the front. Why do we want that? Well, it means whatever speed you're going into a corner, the car should feel the same. The balance of the car should stay the same. It should stay level. And that, in turn, should breed confidence. But here's where it gets complicated because all that warm air from the radiator has to go somewhere, and what you don't want is for it firing straight over the top of the car, down and into the engine intakes. You want cooler air for the engine, which creates more power. So what they've done is created these special aero add-ons here. Now this little lip, that creates an area of low pressure behind it, which sucks the air out of this nostril. And then there's these veins here and another vein under the mesh, which you can't see, which throws the air and accelerates it out towards the side of the car. But the crafty air wants to come back and it wants to reattach to the rear screen and go back into the engine around here. So that's where these fins come in to keep the air separated. So you get all the benefits of that single radiator in the front, and you've got your engine running on nice, fresh, cool air at the rear. Genius. Clearly, Aero is the name of the game here. There's a splitter up front now, not a spoiler, to divert air over and underneath, while side blades fire it outwards. Louvres in the front wheel arches and 911 GT1 inspired vents behind the front wheels release pressure in the front arch, while side blades direct air along the side of the car. Even the suspension gets the Aero treatment. Longer double wishbone arms have teardrop-shaped profiles to add 40 kilograms of downforce at top speed. The spring rates are also 50% stiffer than a GT3. In terms of wheels, you've got 20-inch rims at the front, 21-inch at the rear, and then you've got a choice of 3 wheels. So these are the lightweight forged aluminium wheels. You can tell they're lightweight because they've got these holes in them. And then you've got the standard forged aluminium wheels, and then the magnesium rims, which you can only get if you fork out for the Weissach pack. In terms of brakes, this car here has carbon ceramics on it, but you can also get steel brakes as standard, slightly thicker discs than you get on the GT3, but let's face it, if you're a GT3 RS customer, you're probably going to go for the carbon ceramics. Oh, and this is a nice little feature down here. You probably wouldn't even notice it if it was pointed out and if it wasn't lit up. But just there between this side blade and the bodywork is an indicator, a side repeater, very nicely hidden away. What have we got here? Some more Aero shenanigans. So this space here, this hole, is exactly the same one as you get on the 911 Turbo, but it has a different function. Here, it's about reducing drag. So the air that goes into here is accelerated into this rear wheel arch, which in turn reduces drag. But of course, all that air has to be ejected somewhere. So you've got this cutaway rear arch, you've got this side blade, which funnels some of it round the side of the car, but you've also got 2 more little vents here, one at the top, one at the bottom. Now, there's a good story about this because Andreas Preuninger absolutely hates fake vents. So this one at the top is real, there's mesh there, I can feel it, air actually comes out of there. But this smaller lower section is not a vent, so he's written on it, no vent, so there can be no arguments whatsoever. If we come around the back, we've got 3 things we need to talk about. The first is the width of this thing. It is 29 millimeters wider than a GT3, and then there's the diffuser, which is a slightly modified version of the diffuser you get on the GT3. And the third thing, what is the... Oh yes, this massive rear wing that completely dominates the entire car. Now this is a swan neck spoiler, just like the one you get on the GT3, but it's obviously been scaled up to comic book proportions. In fact, when this section of the wing is in its uppermost setting, it's actually taller than the roofline of the car, which is a first for a production Porsche. So what do we have here? We have a 2-part wing. You've got the fixed section at the bottom and then this movable element at the top. It moves via hydraulics. And what that means is that Porsche has basically fitted an F1 style DRS system to a road car, to a car that normal people like you and I can just go out and buy and drive. It's insane. So what exactly does DRS do? Well, if you want to overtake a rival or show off on a straight, you can push a button and the wing will flatten itself, reducing drag and letting you go faster. On the flip side of that, if you need to stop in a hurry, the movable elements of the wing rise up and act as an air brake to slow you down like a really, really expensive sale. At 124 miles an hour, this GT3 RS produces 409 kilograms of downforce, which is twice as much as the old GT3 RS and 3 times as much as the GT3 over there. And that's not exactly a streamliner, is it? It also produces 860 kilograms of downforce at 177 miles an hour. It wouldn't be a modern 911 without drive modes and things to adjust, but this takes things to a whole new level, making chassis adjustments easy and accessible. You don't need a spanner and a jack or to get your hands dirty, you just need your fingers to twiddle 4 dials on the steering wheel. You can even make tweaks on the fly while you're still rolling out on track. And this is where all the twiddling occurs via these 4 dials that have magically sprung up on the wheel in front of me. And the first one you want to care about is drive mode. So you've got 3 modes, normal, sport and track. Put it into track and that then unlocks the functionality in these other dials. So the first one we're going to play with is called PASM. If we click that, all the dials now change their functionality and you can individually change the compression and rebound on the front and rear suspension. It's just astonishing. Now this one down here is marked PTV+. That is your EDIF. So if I click that, I can now change the coast and power functions. That's basically dictates the car's behavior on the entry to a corner and then on the exit of a corner as well. And then this one is the ESC and traction control button. So if I click that, I've got 7-stage traction control. And if I want to turn everything off, I've got to change my ESC mode to off. And then I can turn it all off. All very exciting. This button here, that's marked DRS. So your movable rear wing, your flaps in the front spoiler, they will constantly be altering to try and keep that 70% rear, 30% front aero balance that I mentioned earlier, but you can override it. So if you're on a straight and you want the wing fully open, you can hit this button and you can hit it again to make the wing fully closed. What else can I tell you? Oh yes, sadists out there, I've got some bad news. Unfortunately, because the electronics and the integration of screens in modern Porsches are just too complicated, there is no option in this car to delete the infotainment and delete the aircon. So, sorry guys, you're gonna have to put up with a screen and aircon. Shame. Being an RS is not gonna be chunky. Thanks to lightweight materials like carbon fibre reinforced plastic, or CFRP, being used in the doors, wings, roof and bonnet, for example, it weighs 1,450 kilograms with fluids. That's only 45 kilograms heavier than the lightest spec Lotus Emira. Now, you can get a Club Sport pack as a no-cost option, and that adds the steel roll cage that we got in the back here, a fire extinguisher and 6-point harnesses, which this car doesn't seem to be fitted with. Or you can go the whole hog and step up to the Weissach pack. Now that adds a loads more carbon fibre elements, a load more exposed carbon fibre on various components around the car, and does cut a significant chunk of weight. And you can have PDK paddles with magnets in them for the ultimate crisp gear shift. Very underrated attribute, that one. It's all very impressive when you see it in person, but if you're going to learn all there is to know about a new Porsche GT car, there's only one man you need to talk to, and it's not me. It's Andreas Preuninger. Andreas, thank you so much for having us back again.
Welcome to Weissach.
Yeah, this is amazing. I prefer this to a studio environment. You know,
well, me too.
Yeah, it's your office, right? You work
well,
somewhere
it's
through
close
there.
by. Spend a lot of time here, yeah.
Cool. Now, when we spent some time in the studio with the GT4 RS, I remember you saying, well, just wait until you see the GT3 RS, and you weren't joking. This thing it's completely wild. But I suppose my first question is, who's this car for? Can you really drive this thing on the road? Is it too extreme?
It depends, but the customer group, the target group is clearly the track enthusiasts.
Yeah.
The people that attend track days, that use their car as an instrument, as a tool for doing, let's say, homemade racing or sort of racing in a semi-professional way. If you look at the thing, it's obvious. It's a race car with a license plate attached more than ever. Mm-hmm. And the Aero concept, the whole shape of the car, the whole way it comes across, it's race car and it's very radical. It looks more wild and extreme than many actual race cars of the GT3 class. It's really a tool for the racetrack, for the people that are already a little bit into it, maybe drove the actual GT3 RS, and they will see they can make progress when they go to the new car, because there's more adjustments, more aero, more of everything, more contact patch. We're really concentrated on this car on giving the utmost for the customer that really does track days. Not so much like a GT4 RS to enjoy a mountainous road and to do a Sunday drive with the car on a B road. That's maybe not what we're aiming at with that car. Mm-hmm. It can be done, and it's more fun than you could think of, because it really behaves very well in the street as well. But yeah, it's as close to a race car as you can get with a license plate attached.
So I'll go with a difficult question early on. How much further can you push the RS brand before you are literally just fitting airbags to an RSR race car?
That would be great if we could do that on the legal side, which we can't. I mean, this is what we can do right now with the boundary conditions that we have from the regulation side, from technology available. And to be frank with you, I can't think of anything to do for a second generation that we still have in the drawer that we hold back.
We put
everything in that car right now. that we know from racing and that we think is good for a car like that.
Is this peak? I know when we were talking about the GT3 RS, you talked about this engine and putting the GT3 engine in the back of the Cayman, something you wanted to do for so long. And actually, we know that the combustion engine only has a certain shelf life on this earth. So
let's wait and see.
Yeah, I know you've got ideas to keep it alive for a long time now, but do you feel we're sort of in this kind of peak combustion era where it's like...
I don't think we're in a peak combustion era. I don't want to talk about future strategies or whatever, or technology in general. But the problems the combustion engine right now faces is the law situation all around. The emission standards that are getting dialed down all the time. And for a normal combustion engine with 50 horsepower, that might be okay. But we're talking a high-revving motorsport product here that should be street legal. And this is more the challenge. It's not the technology. I mean, the combustion engine in itself, for making more power, for being a companion for a long time, would be easy without the boundary conditions, which we have to accept, though.
Yeah. I have to say, I love the fact that this has got 518 brake horsepower.
It's 525 in Europe, or in the rest of Europe.
Well, 15,
so it's 15 over that.
On the GT3.
Yeah.
But I love that, because honestly, that 500 horsepower or just above, that's the sweet spot, right, for these types of cars?
I think so, because it's relatively easy to gain straight line performance and just upping the power and putting turbos on it or whatever, but that means weight as well, especially turbocharging an engine. We've got an atmospherical engine, a high-revving, normal aspirated engine. That's exactly what our customer expects from us. And this technology has a limit when it should be street legal and last for a lifetime, which that thing can because it's bulletproof. And we concentrated rather on making better track times with the rest of the car, which is Aero, which is body in white, which is suspension, with this contact patch, which is systems that you can operate as a driver. Still, the engine is not the same engine as in GT3. We've got hotter cams with higher duration, so the behavior beyond 6K RPM to the red line of 9 is a little bit more ferocious even than on GT3, more than you would think with only 15 horsepower more. We have different cylinder heads, we have different intake systems, so it's not the same engine, but it's a very close relative.
And we've got a GT3 over there just for reference. Hey, how you doing? Just a little prop for us over there. So, come on, give us some sort of flavour of lap time. As you say, the engines are very different, but in terms of plain power, they're not so different. How much faster can this thing go?
Depends on the conditions, depends on the track, definitely. I mean, we hadn't had the chance to do a fastest lap on the Nürburgring yet, because there was some parts missing and the dates not correct and the weather was super hot. Super hot weather is not exactly the best condition for getting a clean, fast lap, because the hotter it is, the less oxygen you've got in the air. It's not a turbo engine that can compensate it with higher boost. So, but we were on it, and I think when we meet each other driving the car in Silverstone later that year, we'll have the times, and it'll be substantially quicker than a GT3, as a matter of fact.
I can't wait. I can't wait. The power of downforce.
The power of downforce, the contact patch, everything. Okay, this car has more coefficient drag, logically. It has 3 times the downforce than a GT3, which has a lot. And so it costs top speed. So the longer straights on the Autobahn, the GT3 is faster. But we don't care about top speed. We care about the highest possible speed you can reach on the fastest track, which is the Nürburgring Nordschleife. On a Döttinger straight, it goes 285, 290, something like that. And then we have 2 horses sitting on the roof, 860 kilos of downforce on the car as soon as you hit the ditch or go into the curve, which is a substantial enabler for fast lap times.
Which is the perfect segue to talk about the DRS system, because, you're obviously looking at this equation, all this extra downforce that helps you in the corners. But if you want a really hot lap time, a few extra mile an hour on the straights makes a big difference. So how long have you wanted to fit a DRS system to a road car? It must have been an idea in your head.
I always found it fascinating in Formula One because it gives the driver something to play with. And I tell you, even on the Autobahn, on the de-restricted empty Autobahn, it plays such a big role, a lot bigger than I thought, actually, until I tried it. Because if you're going really quick and there's a curve coming, and you kind of start to think, will I lift or will I go? And the only solution is press DRS, and the car is like settling down.
Yeah.
You can feel it, how it hunkers down, like as if it would click in a rail system. And you can reach speeds comfortably, easily, without any danger that haven't been there before in the kernels. And that's why the car is so fast on the track. I mean, with that setup, with a Cup R compound tire, which is available at the dealerships, in some high-speed corners, that thing on a Cup R tire is faster than a Cup car, a current Cup car on slicks.
It's insane.
And so everybody should train them neck muscles a little bit, like the Formula One drivers.
You'll be able to spot a GT3 RS driver from, across the bar, because it'll be there. Now, with the GT4 RS, the noise, obviously, the intake system, that was its big party trick. You could say the DRS is this car's party trick. Is there anything additional you've done with the sound of this car other than just you've got 9,000 RPM?
I think the rear engine setup on a GT3 sounds spectacular. And the same goes for this car. It has even a little bit less insulating material. And so there's a little bit more coming across of intake and of exhaust noise. We don't have the intake system like on a GT4 RS, so the sound is bespoke GT3 RS, which I think is good, because everybody said, oh, the 4RS sounds completely different than this one, despite having the same engine. That's a good thing. So every car should have its own characteristics. This car definitely lives from its body, from its looks, from its stance, from its aerodynamical concept, from the way the driver can influence the drive systems. You can influence rebound and compression of each four of the dampers.
All from the steering wheel?
By turning a knob from the steering wheel with a dial, you can adjust the diff, you can adjust traction control and everything very neatly. It helps really to find your own best setup. You don't have to crawl around on the floor and doing clicks and after one lap getting back, no, that was not correct, and try again. So it makes it easier. So the technology that we involved in that car is really a lot of innovations. Like the door is carbon fiber. We never had a carbon fiber door in a street legal car. And it's not the same door that we have in the Cup car. In the Cup car, you don't have the safety concerns on a street car, and you've got these crossbars here. And this is a real carbon fiber door, and it is an enabler for the aerodynamics, because we needed a different shape to vent the wheelhouses here to get the air out, like on a GT1 back then.
It seems like this car's entire mission is to get air out. Out of the arch, out of the top of here, out of the.
I tell you what, the air is really frightened when it hits that car.
It needs escape hatches. So this is the perfect chance then. Why don't you just walk me through a few of your favorite bits where you've really moved the needle on this car?
I mean, the special bits, like I said before, we needed enablers to be able to realize such a radical aerodynamic concept. The cooler system. Look at this. So we have a central radiator in the front of the car, like on a GT3R, like on the RSR even. So that's a pure motorsport part, and it's a motorsport technology. That way we could leave away the outer two radiators that we have in the GT3, for example, and on the predecessor GT3 RS, enabling us to fit in aerodynamic modules underneath the headlights that work in synchronization with the rear flap, which is not only 0 or 100, it's infinitesimal. It goes all the way, and it's perfectly in balance with the front modules, which couldn't have been there when we would have had coolers here.
Sure.
So even the radiator concept is something like a product out of the aerodynamic needs. So we needed a very efficient cooler. It has 40% more efficiency than the 3 cooling unit on the GT3, which is needed because the surface of the 3 coolers are a lot bigger than the surface of only 1 cooler here, which is a big one. But you have to overcompensate the size for more efficiency. And that was something that was difficult, but now the car is from the cooling side completely healthy.
You do, of course, you lose your luggage space.
You lose the luggage space, but you have luggage space behind the seats.
Oh, there we go.
Most of the RS owners I know, they have their stuff anyways in the cabin. Yeah, but sorry for that, but that's a price for having this extremely astonishing aerodynamics on the car.
And if the most important thing to you is space for a bag in the front nose.
Absolutely.
There's a car over there.
And we offer a roof rack as well to put your stuff on. No, and you were asking about the things that...
Yeah, I have to say these, when I first saw pictures of it, my computer, these leapt out. They give it a really different look and character at the front, but of course, nothing's just stuck on for looks.
This has a purpose, as you might imagine. It's not the most beautiful part on the car. We tried, and this is what came out. It's really functioned, but we need it, because why? Because the air enters here, exits behind the radiator here hot. And without that, it would go straight over the roof to the intake of the engine.
So you're trying to send it out towards me over here.
We have to get the air away from the engine's intake, which is in the middle, which sits in the middle of the car. So this vane that you see here, this blade, directs the air a little bit to the outside, coming up, and this boomerang, we call it, does the rest in guiding the air all around the car. The good thing is, even in wintertime, we always have it warm in the cabin when you put the windows down, because the hot air is coming by here, but would try to get into the middle of the car here again. And that's why these fins are for, to guide the air away from the center of the intake. Fantastic. This is how these two plastic parts work together, and they're needed. Take those away and take the boomerang away, more than 20 horsepower less.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, and because the air is just hotter that the engine has to intake.
Am I right that even the wishbones on the suspension are profiled to add downforce?
We have a double wishbone front axle here. They're not the same parts in the GT3s, it's the same principle. But every wishbone, every steering rod, every connecting rod is shaped like a wing. And it looks spectacular. I would like to have this transparent to show it off. It's like in a Formula 1 car, you see it as well. And it makes 40 kilos of downforce attacking directly at the suspension joints, exactly where we want it. 40 kilos. We always have to look very hard for downforce in the front, because we want to keep the balance of the car, 70% in the back, 30% at the front, stable, always. That's why we have to move this adjustable diffuser in synchronicity with the rear flapper.
Wow, there's a lot going on. So, in terms of specs, then, Club Sport is the standard car.
Club Sport is standard.
So, what do you get with the standard kind of spec, and then we'll talk a bit about the Weissach pack and how we step up.
The standard spec, if you want to have the roll cage, you get it. It's included in the car. Not our American customers. That's a pity, but the regulations in the US doesn't allow to have a roll cage in the car in a GT3. But it normally comes standard with the RS pack. You can opt for one without if you need the luggage space. And you have the seat harness, the 6-point harness that you need, and the provision to make a emergency cutoff switch for racetrack use. That's mainly and a fire extinguisher. That is mainly what the Club Sport package consists of.
And then the Weissach pack, when you step up to that?
The Weissach pack, I mean, this is the subtle version of the car.
I walked in that door, I barely noticed it. Where's the new car?
That's the car that really blends in on a day in London with a lot of traffic. No, not kidding. The Weissach package shows more exposed carbon fiber. All these parts are carbon fiber, but they're painted. The Weissach package will have a hood, like on the predecessor, that is in carbon fiber, but will feature stripes exiting here this air vent in the exterior color. So it will be two stripes in exterior color there. It looks very good. The roof will be exposed carbon fiber. The rear lid will be carbon fiber as well, or then the rear lid, so then the rear flap here, the movable part of the wing, will be carbon fiber. And the cool thing is, on the Weissach package, there's a Porsche sticker underneath that you can only see when you go in high downforce.
So when you hit the brakes.
When you hit the brakes, By the way, hitting the brakes, doing this active air brake thing is producing 2.5 meters less distance in stopping from 200 to 0. That's a lot. And even more when you go faster. It makes really a difference. Makes really a difference. And Weissach pack as well has some carbon features on the suspension, like the stabilizers, the linking parts of the stabilizer, and the transversal strut between the two uprights. In the back, it's alone 5 kilos of weight saving with carbon parts on Weissach package on the suspension. You get magnesium wheels, which are 8 kilos lighter. So, and we have pedals, the shifting pedals, with the mechanism of the cup car, with a magnetic mechanism, because click, click, click.
Does it just give you a kind of crisper feeling?
It's super crisp, and you hear it now. And we have the door handles in carbon fiber, and the stitchings and all that stuff.
Is the roll cage in carbon as well?
The roll cage is carbon fiber as well. On the Weissach package, it has a different geometry. It's not this cross section that we see here. It looks a little bit different, very exciting, and it's 6 kilos lighter than this one.
And in total, with the Weissach pack, how much?
It's about 9. It's very roughly 19.4 kilos.
19.47192.
Exactly.
And what percentage of customers? Because look, if you're going to go the whole hog and get the GT3 RS, you know, you're probably the person that cares about 19.4 kilograms. So, what percentage of your customers are going to go for the?
What's your guess?
Pack? Well, I'm going to say above 50%.
Right.
Yeah?
Way above, yeah.
Oh, really?
So we're curious ourselves, but with the RS models, it's way more than 50%. It goes even in the 70% range, depending on the market.
Yeah.
Depending on the market.
Yeah, and it's obviously, it's not a limited number of cars, it's a limited build time. How does it slot in with GT4 and GT3, and how long will you make
We got one production line in Zuffenhausen, and we're very busy. And we're trying to feed in as much cars as we can. We're prepared to produce cars, not only one a day. I'm sure there won't be enough for everybody. It's always the same, so I don't make any promises here. But we're trying our best, and we're starting the production in a couple of weeks. Yeah. And throughout all the next year, and we're doing our best together with our suppliers to get enough parts to make enough cars.
Sure, but it's obviously a very calculated thing on your part. You know, you could do 2 production lines and make twice as many cars, but for you, is there a sort of fine line between exclusivity and profits?
I don't know. I mean, that's not my role to judge about something like that. I think as always, when you have the situation when there's more demand than what you can actually produce, there's this exclusivity thing. When there's 3 people and only 2 cars, it's the same as 3,000 and only 2,900.
Sure.
But it's not that we want to decrease the number or to keep the numbers in a certain range. We only have the capacity in the company, and we only have one production line. And we, like you said, we can't just make a second one because we need exactly the same buildings again. Sure. So we're producing at a maximum what we can pump out. But there's not a limit that we have in our head that we don't want to produce more than this and that, because we ask the markets how much cars do you think you need, and then we act according to that and trying to adjust the production, which sometimes goes wrong because the demand seems to rise from model to model. So as soon as we adjust, there's even more demand the next time.
Look, whatever you're doing it right. And to see and hear the amount of work that's gone into this car on a level, even the components you can't see are working to get you around that racetrack faster. It's astonishing. It must make your heart bleed if a customer buys this car and just parks it up and doesn't drive it.
Well, I mean, it's up to anybody. It's up to the customer. Absolutely, this car is made for driving. It's meant to get some stone chips. It's meant to get used. It's meant to produce a lot of fun for the owner, because otherwise we could spend like maybe half of the time making it that drivable as it is and that quick as it is. It seems like a bit of a waste to me if a car is parked only in the garage and getting its polish. But we know from the RS customer base, especially the RS customers, 85% of them, they really use their cars on the track. And this is a quota I can live with.
All right, well, I can't wait to have a go and to drive it properly as you intended. Thank you so much.
It's been a pleasure.
Cheers. It is, as you've probably figured out by now, a very, very special bit of kit, this car, and you probably want one. I know that I do. But there are 2 problems standing in our way. The first is price. It costs around £195,000, and the second is being lucky enough to get your name on the list for one. But look, if you've got that sort of money burning a hole in your pocket and friends in high enough places, then please do crack on, because it's going to go down in history, this car. The wildest 911 thus far.